Good afternoon. It's 4 o'clock, and I'm going to call the ASDB board meeting to order. Leticia, could you do roll for us tonight? Sorry. Brittany, are you on the phone? Do you have that with you? Oh.
Suke, can
I am on the phone, and I can grab my binder. Give me 1 second. Okay, I can do roll.
Thank you.
Perfect. We'll start with Linda Bose.
Present.
I am present myself, Brittany Buchanan. Colette Chapman.
Here.
Lynn Davison.
Present.
Michael Gordon.
I'm here.
President Suke Kneifel.
Here.
Katie Cinco. Not present. And then Earl Terry.
Thank you, Brittany.
And this is Katie. This is Katie. I'm here.
Awesome. Welcome, Katie. We'll move on to 1.2 information item, ASDB Deaf-Blind Project Presentation by Lisa Yancarelli and Amy Trollope, Interim Assistant Superintendent, catch-up.
Good afternoon. Board President Kneifel, Superintendent Reichman, and Assistant Superintendent Katrov. Thank you so much for inviting us to give you some information about the Arizona Deaf-Blind Project. My name is Lisa Yancarelli, and I am the Director of the Deaf-Blind Project. And with me today are the two deaf-blind specialists, Pat Jung and Amy Trollope. All right. The Arizona Deaf-Blind Project is funded from a grant from the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Special Education Programs. This grant funding comes from IDEA Part D, which is the technical assistance and dissemination part of IDEA. Each state and several territories of the United States has a deaf-blind project, and each state administers their deaf-blind project grant differently. Some are housed at state departments of education, some at state universities, and some, like ours, are lucky enough to be housed at schools for the deaf and the blind. All state deaf-blind projects are part of a national network that is led by the National Center on Deafblindness. Our project is responsible for providing technical assistance and training to all schools and families in Arizona, not just those that are part of ASDB. As the director of the Arizona Deaf-Blind Project, my primary role is administrative. I submit the application for the grant every 5 years. I submit the annual child count and the annual performance reports. The real work of the Deaf-Blind Project comes from our deaf-blind specialists, Pat and Amy. They're the ones that provide the technical assistance and training to the families and staff of students who are deaf-blind. Services from the Deaf-Blind Project are unique. We serve families, students and their families from birth to age 22, and we remain connected to the family throughout their child's education. We are the one constant during each transition of the special education process. We remain connected no matter where the student attends school, as long as the student remains in Arizona. While we do not provide direct IEP services, our support has a direct impact on the educational programming and outcomes for students. We have been very fortunate to have the support and encouragement of the ASDB administration to collaborate with all areas of the agency. Pat and Amy work in partnership with the campuses itinerant services, and the early learning program staff. They regularly go on home visits with our ELP providers to provide information and support to families of infants and toddlers who have been newly diagnosed. They provide training to the campuses on deafblind strategies and also provide targeted and more intensive technical assistance to teams when requested. Currently, we have targeted TA plans open and ongoing to support teams on the PDSD campus and are currently establishing some new TA plans for our newest teachers on the Tucson campus. For our itinerant programs, Amy and Pat attend region meetings to provide an overview of information on deafblindness and the different levels of support that the Deafblind Project has to offer, which is at no cost and available to all districts. This connection has led to multiple requests for technical assistance from partnering districts. One of our most important initiatives is to provide ongoing training to staff who are serving in the role of the intervener. An intervener is a staff member who works one-on-one with a student and is specially trained to ensure access and inclusivity. They provide a bridge to the world for the student who is deafblind. The intervener facilitates access to information, communication, and social emotional well-being. This year, we are taking a little different approach to our intervener training program in that we are providing more specific student training so that the intervener is better prepared to support their students' communication and learning needs. For those who are not working as an intervener but would like to learn more about deafblindness and the role of the intervener, we offer free online training from the National Center on Deafblindness. The Open Hands, Open Access training modules are available on their website. In addition to intervener training, we also provide 2 series of virtual trainings during the school year that are open and available to all staff. Our first training for early intervention providers was held on August 30th. The topic was play-based deafblind strategies. Other topics that will be covered this year for early intervention are American Printing House for the Blind materials for birth to 3, tactile skill development, and cortical visual impairment. The other virtual series that we offer for our K-12 providers, we call our virtual drop-ins. Our first session was held on August 28th, and the topic was Understanding Usher Syndrome in the 21st Century. Over 70 people attended the training, which is one of our largest sessions that we have ever held. Other topics that we're offering this year are orientation and mobility for deafblind, family support services, and tactile symbols. As I said, all of our trainings are open to anyone. If you would like to attend our mailing or be added to the mailing list to receive notifications of our upcoming opportunities, please just let one of us know when we can add you to that list. I also want to mention our webpage, which has general resources and information about deafblindness. There's also a link for providers or families to make referrals to the Deafblind Project and a Contact Us feature to request our assistance. The web address is azdeafblindproject.org. Thank you all for your attention and interest in the work of the Deafblind Project, and we're available to take any questions.
Thank you. I do have a question. You mentioned the child count. Can you give us an idea of how many children within that age range have been identified here in Arizona?
So I believe you were in the website or the database last. Are we at 230?
Okay. And that's within the technical...
Births to 22.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Approximately 230. Like, we just got a new referral yesterday So it's ever changing, and we, of course, update it every year. Take the kids who have left us, the kids who have graduated, and no longer receive services from schools. We update that information and try to connect them to the Helen Keller National Center.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I do. This is Linda Bove. I have a question. Do you have an individual on your team who is themselves deafblind or deaf or blind to provide that level of support, that personal experience? Do you have someone on your team, or is that a plan that you're trying to incorporate into the future?
So at the moment, we do not, but absolutely would welcome a member of the deafblind community to be a staff member on our project. We do have an advisory panel where we do invite members of the deafblind community to be with us. We haven't met for a while. COVID kind of put it aside, but I plan on bringing it back. I just haven't yet, so we would welcome that. Anytime there's an opening, anyone is welcome to apply. So I would welcome it.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you
Yeah,
very
this is
much.
Katie.
Oh, go ahead, Katie.
I'm curious, well, thanks for sharing, first of all. The information is very informative, but I am kind of curious, how can members of the deafblind community join that advisory panel? What's the process, or how does that work in order to
So to join, please just send me an email and let me know of your interest. Like I said, we haven't met in a while, and so your interest really notes to me that we need to bring it back, and I would love to have members of the deafblind community on our advisory and start that up again. Do you need me to give you my email address?
Yes, that'd be great.
Sure.
Katie, thank you.
Sure. So it's Lisa, Lisa, dot Yancarelli, which is spelled YENCARELLI, at ASDB.az.gov.
This is Katie. Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, any further comments or questions?
This is Brittany. I don't have a question, I just have a comment. My family has directly benefited from the Deaf Blind Project, and I just want to say what a great program this is, and I am so thankful that we have them. I am thankful for the support that they always give to families in the deafblind community, and I think what their work is incredibly important, and I'm just really glad to have them around.
Thank you, Brittany. Anybody else? Thank you again. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
So before moving on to 1.3, we are going to kind of flip things around a little bit, and we are going to move 7. Not yet.
May I interrupt you? Donna Williams is not here
Okay,
yet. She appears to be stuck in traffic.
I'll try it after. Okay, never mind. We're not going to flip things quite yet. We're going to go on and move down to 1.3, call to the public for agendized items. The first person I have on my list is Elizabeth Browse.
Hello, Superintendent Reichman, Board President Kneifel, Assistant Superintendent Kachov, and board members. Hello, my name is Elizabeth Libby Browse, and I'm a preschool teacher at PDSD and the president of the Arizona School for the Deaf and Blind Education Association, ASDB-EA. I am commenting today with the support of and on behalf of ASDB-EA, which we do have some new members at this board meeting today. We're excited to see information and discussion of developing an H policy on the agenda today. We noted that there are many H policy examples provided, and we hope that those, combined with the ones that we shared with Board President Kneifel in December 2023, help begin to demystify what an H policy entails. If you need access to the district policies and ASDB-EA's notes and comments on those policies, I'd be happy to share those again. Members of ASDB-EA made the choice to work at ASDB because we have found community and we believe in the school as well as our students and families. Working at ASDB is our livelihood. We are looking for a seat at the table where discussions and decisions are happening that will shape the future of our agency. Not only do our students' lives depend on that future, but ours as employees do too. Just a couple of days ago, Superintendent Reichman sent out a vlog update. In that email, she asked, "How will ASDB continue to offer the best education and support to our students in 2034? With some considerations in mind, she asked a second question. In order to sustain ASDB's purpose in giving our students the best education and support possible, how does ASDB prepare for this future? ASDB-EA believes that we have a responsibility to help be the solution for these challenges our agency faces. We want to partner in a formal way with the board and superintendent on improving the working conditions, retaining and attracting highly qualified staff, and offering a unique perspective to the challenges we face. We can do this work in solidarity through a co-created H policy. We hope that this is the first step in developing a partnership of supporting our students now and preparing our agency for the future. Our students depend on it, and we depend on it. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person is Christina Heyer.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Christina Heyer, and I'm a preschool teacher here at PDSD. I've been with the agency since 2016, when I started my internship at Region 2, or formerly known as DVR. As a young professional, what stood out to me and what I remember while interning as an itinerant teacher while getting my master's degree from the University of Arizona's Deaf Ed program were two things. One, the dedication everyone had to their students, their families, and the districts, and the services we provided was undeniable. Two, the constant flow and collaboration of knowledge, feedback, shared responsibilities, and expertise that we all partook in between my supervisors, Nancy and Patty at the time, our director, audiologists, Sarah and Carol, and fellow teachers, Libby, Trish, and Maureen, to name a few. Seeing that willingness to collaborate between all of these professionals, no matter the task, was not only admirable, but moving. So moving, in fact, that I said, this is a place I want to work and grow in. And 8 years later, I'm still here. From an intern in college, itinerant teacher at DVR, and now at PDSD campus as a preschool teacher, I asked the board to please consider helping ASDB-EA with co-creating an H policy, because what better way to continue a collaboration of expertise, skills, feedback, and shared responsibilities than between all those professionals directly and its union to be a part of. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to 1.4, information item, Superintendent's Report, Superintendent Annette Reichman.
Good afternoon, President Kneifel, board members, Acting Assistant Superintendent Ketchoff, Oren Ketchoff, and the ASDB community. Welcome to our September 24th board meeting here. 19th, sorry. I want to mention that the Assistant Superintendent, Shayna Cooper, will not be here. She is on medical leave currently. You have her written report, and so if you have any questions related to her written report, we have the Executive Director of IT and HR and Business Services here that are able to answer any of your questions. So, I'd like to continue our discussion from the last two board meetings about the importance of stability in the organization to support a culture of growth and of planning for the future, especially when there are modifications and changes occurring. There are things that we have to do to keep the organization stable. First, we have to stay true to the roots of our core values and our mission that include our beliefs that every student can learn, grow, and succeed. Our mission that says we are committed to excellence in innovation and providing education to all students in the state of Arizona who are deaf, blind, and deafblind. We are also committing to excellence of innovation in our leadership, in our collaboration, in our partnerships. The second thing that we have to have as continued stability in the organization is clear goals, and we have that thanks to you. We have a strategic plan that is devised of the 4 pillars: to excellent in communication and relationships, to outstanding student development, to superb organizational culture, and effective resource management. And then the third thing that we have to have for a continued organization of stability is a strong, stable leadership team. And thankfully, again, we have that. And we have a leadership team that is truly committed to growing thinking about the future, fostering growth. So, when we talk about developing a good plan, the question is, what's a good plan? A good plan can survive the reality of the world. Reality. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We can't predict the future. A good example is in 2020. The COVID pandemic shut down the world. Nobody predicted that that would happen. So we have to have a plan that's also flexible. Flexible in its thinking, flexible in its timelines, something that allows for error. A good plan has to be frugal, very cautious and careful in how we use our resources. So when you think about the plan and then you think about the outcome, we know that the outcomes are never exactly what we thought they would be. So we have to have some flexibility, some movement in the outcomes similarly as well. So if you keep that in mind, how, as we have this discussion about developing a plan for the future, so the first thing that we have to do is we have to think about the future. And in that, we have to examine the environment we're in. We have to scan our environment externally and internally. Externally, what do we need to be looking at? One thing that we have to look at is birth rates. What's the number of babies being born currently comparative to last year, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago? Because it's changing. Changes are happening, and they are happening fast. And what does that mean for us for the next 10 years? And as it's affected by the birth rate. The second thing that we need to look at is our state support, the public education. My question is the state legislature, their priorities. Will they continue at the same level of support for public education, including ASDB? That's in question. The third question I have is that the state support for the infrastructure of the state, including the facilities. Our state is not funding the maintenance of facilities. So what does that mean for ASDB? Those are the three things. And another question is qualified teachers, professional staff, interpreters, OT, PT. When we're looking at our undergraduates and our graduate programs, those students who are graduating with degrees that we want, the number of those students is continually decreasing. So how are we going to compete with the other schools for that reducing of qualified pool of people that we want to come here and that we want to retain here? So those are 4 questions, and there may be other questions, but those are 4 that I can think of as we scan the external environment. We also need to be looking internally at ASDB, the internal environment. And the first question is, the enrollment entrance of our students. We have this information going all the way back to 1912. We have a lot of data about our enrollment. So as I look at our enrollment, our trends, what does it mean for our future in 10 years? What will our enrollment look like? I wonder. The second thing, another question, is our students. I just met with about 10 students this morning, and I think they were first grade. They came to the L building, and I was looking at who these young people were. And there were 2 deafblind with their canes. One was clearly with an intervener and holding on, not letting go to their IA, their instructional assistant. Our students, their needs are changing. When we predict 10 years from now, what will our students' needs be? How will we meet their needs? So a third thing that I think we have to look at is our current staff, our teachers, our professional staff, our staff. How many will be retiring? How many quitting in the next 10 years? And how are we going to replace them? And if they're not out there, then how are we going to grow our own? We need to look at our facilities too, because as you know, the Tucson campus, our facilities are aging, and there's a lot of repairs, a lot of renovations here as well. We need a lot of repairs, a lot of renovations, and it seems every day that something else is breaking down. We have the master facilities plan, but where exactly are we getting the funding for that? Overall, our funding, our resources, what are we needing support? How are we supporting our program? All of those internal, environmental things that we have to look at, looking at our data and figuring out, what is it informing us? What story is it telling us about here?
So, when we start discussing about our plan for the future, we need to check our statutory requirements, both federal and state. That is the first step. We have specific Arizona state statutes that say the purpose of ASDB is to provide education to students who are deaf, blind, etc. We have to look at those statutes as our purpose. They are the requirements we have to follow to comply with IDEA as well. There are other requirements that we are bound by, but we have to look those over first, and then we are able to look at our own policies. The policies that you have reviewed and approved, those policies tell us in administration how to operate the agency and how we are going to run the organization. So those two build the foundation, and then we are able to develop a plan. We do already have our strategic plan that you, the board, developed in 2021. This year is the 5th year of that plan, and we are beginning to develop the strategic plan 2.0 that will span 2025 to 2030. I will bring this plan for board revision and approval, but currently it is still at the internal level where we are discussing and figuring out what the next 5 years could potentially look like for us. Other plans are going on, other planning is going on as well. For example, our Cognia re-accreditation. If you all remember, in 2018, we got our first agency level accreditation from Advanced Ed. Now they've changed their name to Cognia. We just went through the re-accreditation process, and we submitted our self-assessments, our theory of action, And then last week, Cognia interviewed several board members and members of the leadership team in order to collect additional information about our agency. Cognia has already informed us that we will be issued that reaccreditation. They will submit a report to us in the near future, January or February, with the results of their review. But last week, Tuesday, they did provide some feedback to us. The positive feedback here says, we have a strong culture of providing support that is aligned with our 4 pillars in our strategic plan. Our leaders are motivated to move the agency forward in a positive direction and improve services for our students. We offer a wide range of services to our students all across the state of Arizona. One individual from Utah said that we provide more than what they've seen there for their students who are deaf, hard of hearing, blind, and visually impaired, and deafblind. And the 4th compliment they gave us was when they interviewed 2 of our board members. Those board members said that the agency has grown and improved a lot within the past 8 years because of my leadership. And they noted that. Things we need to consider for improvement, they suggested to revise and improve our data. They want to make us to be more relevant and useful. Currently, we are collecting a lot of data. 5 years ago, we didn't have enough, and now we are overflowing with data. But we're still not using it effectively to guide our decisions. So we need to revise the data so that it is beneficial and helps us. And we can all look at the data and use that in guiding our decision-making process. They recommended we implement a formal program of evaluation. We have evaluations, but we don't formally do program evaluations. They said that our teachers need training on how to better engage our students in their learning process. And they said we need to continue our focus on recruitment and retention efforts, including mentoring opportunities, coaching opportunities, and certification programs that are under the agency's umbrella. So that gives you a sense of Cognia's perspective on us. So I just said we have the master facilities plan. We have the budget plan that we have submitted to the governor's office and will do so every year. We have other plans, but now we are starting the conversation of how can we take all of these plans and integrate them into our next strategic plan 2.0. So right now, those conversations have just begun. We want our strategic plan to be intentional and have benefit for all of us. So again, those conversations are happening now. I'm going to close with 2 final thoughts. First is that when you add or modify a policy, that heavily impacts ASDB. It impacts how we are able to provide educational support to our students. So I ask that you take your time to seriously review and consider and look through the impacts of the decision that you have in relation to our policies. The second thought is that because of all of this, as well as the changing environment, there really is time for us to focus on planning for the future. So maybe next February, the board could have a work study session and have a discussion and analyze our fiscal resources. Because of course, finances, we have to consider, we need finances to do anything. I know most of you are not interested, or you might feel not competent enough or knowledgeable enough about the financial piece. At the same time, we really do need our board members to have an understanding of our revenue and our expenses and how we allocate our financial resources. So I do suggest February having a work study session so that board members have an opportunity to learn more about our financial resources. And then we could continue ongoing work study sessions moving forward. Thank you for listening and for thinking about these things I've brought to your attention. I am now available for any questions.
This is Board Member Bove. Annette, I appreciate your comments. Sorry, I forgot to mention that my name's Linda speaking here. There's a lot of things that we need to take into consideration as we move forward. However, I would like to have those important things brought to us in work study sessions so that we can get a closer, in-depth knowledge. I have several questions about several topics that you just mentioned, but I think that might be better addressed in a work study session where we can come together and analyze and work together to brainstorm our way into the future. I do appreciate all of the comments that you've made today. I'm sure that President Kneifel has been taking several notes, and I really appreciate the time.
Annette, this is Sue Kay. I do have an additional comment or question. I agree. I do think we need to sort of roll up our sleeves and dig into the financial aspects of it and really get a better understanding than most of us have of the finances with ASDB. But I'd also like to see some comparison, for lack of a better word, in how other districts are run, because I think that's key for folks to understand, because while we do operate as an LEA, we are still a state agency, and so that does impact us, and I think we really need to look at sort of both sides of that coin. But I'm all in favor for a work study session on that. I appreciate your comments, and we do have a lot to think about moving forward. Does anybody else have any questions? Anybody on the phone? Hearing none, I'm going to move on. Do we have Donna yet? Do we have Donna? Not yet. Not yet. Okay. All right. We will move on to 1.5 information item, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, Assistant Superintendent Katchoff.
Good afternoon, Board President Kneifel, members of the board, Superintendent Reichman, and the ASDB community. It's hard to believe that we're about 1/8 of the way through the school year. These always go so fast. Both campuses, our early learning program, and our itinerant programs do continue to have staffing shortages, which includes shortages in interpreters and Brailleist shortages. So similar to last year, I want to publicly thank the principals, the directors, and all the teachers for continuing to be creative and trying to find ways of how we can provide the best education possible while we struggle through these shortages. Speaking of working together and teamwork, in late July, following a Foundations Framework A training, all ASL interpreters at ASDB gathered for the second annual Interpreter Summit at Phoenix College. This was an amazing experience as our interpreters were able to learn together, and I commend Dr. Jennifer Scarborough and her team for the hard work in putting that together. Both Superintendent Reichman and I were able to make it down there and sit through some sessions, and it was a quality event. In late August, our early learning program had their 2024 statewide conference, where they continued to build on their vision and mission. I was able to attend one day and met with many passionate staff, some new, and some who have been with us for quite a while. All of them had great questions, and I can't wait to do some ride-alongs with them, just as Superintendent Reichman and I have now scheduled to do some ride-alongs with our itinerant teachers in Northern Arizona later this fall. One more thing about the early learning program. The Arizona Early Intervention Program, which is referred to as ASIP and is sort of the counterpart to ADE, they divide the state into 3 cohorts. Each year, a cohort is selected for monitoring, but because ASDB provides services across the entire state, we are monitored every year. ASIP started their site visits with us about 3 years ago, and today, at ASIP's site visit here, they recognized ASDB for meeting requirements 3 out of 3 years. The ASIP director told me that, sometimes the term meeting requirements sounds like a C, but she said it is close to impossible to meet criteria, so the fact that we've done it for 3 years is really quite an undertaking. This achievement is an example of the dedication of our ELP providers, and I do want to congratulate Dr. Kendra Benedict and our ELP team for the hard work. I snatched the certificate from them because I wanted a prop for the board meeting. So, Dr. Benedict, if you want to come on up here and take this. Our leaders are also doing a great job promoting ASDB across the greater Arizona community. Since taking the position as the statewide director in July, Jason Lilly has been traveling all across the state, meeting and presenting with special education directors and staff in places like Pine Top, Show Low, Window Rock, Page, Tuba City, Nogales, and Yuma. Regional directors Rosetta Hicks, Greer Martin Parrish, and Jason Lilly were also joined by our ELP director, Dr. Benedict, and SPED director, Dr. Sarah Satilli, at ADE's IDEA conference, where they presented as a team for a breakout session that was titled The Umbrella of Services under ASDB. The session received a great response, and there were many questions that continued to happen after the presentation ended. One thing that has been made very clear since our last board meeting is that ASDB will have some tough decisions to make as we move forward. And as Superintendent Reichman mentioned so eloquently in her latest vlog with the community, some of these decisions will be hard. I hope we will continue to work through them as a team and continue to show that we can work together in making these decisions. Abraham Maslow, who's famously known for his Maslow's hierarchy of needs, once stated that in any given moment, we have two options. We can step forward into growth, or we can step back into safety. In the case of ASDB, I think Maslow's wrong. Stepping back into safety, I do not believe, is an option for us anymore. Between the deferred maintenance costs rising on our two campuses, the state budget shortage, and the projected decrease in births across Arizona, I think ASDB's only option is really stepping forward into growth. Luckily, I feel we do currently have a team and a board ready to work together on these tough decisions, and I look forward to seeing what kind of amazing ideas we can create. In closure, I do want to thank the Deaf Blind Project today for having a presentation, which was requested at the board, from the board. The board also requested 2 other items at the last meeting, and we'll have those ready for the November board meeting. The first was a presentation about our ELP program, and the second was our academic outcome data. So expect both those presentations at the next board meeting. Thank you. If you have any questions, let me know.
Any questions? Anyone on the phone? All right.
Okay, this is Mike.
Yes, Mike, go ahead.
I don't want to cause a open meeting full talk, but I'd like to actually go back to the previous item, because what Oren said certainly ties into that. I think when he said we were already an eighth of the year into the school year, it kind of just made me all of a sudden realize that when we said we're going to do a study group in February, it seems like maybe we're putting that off a little too long, particularly when it comes to finances, which is going to be really fundamental or foundational to some of the, if not necessarily decisions being made, but it would be to at least including that to some of the decision making, or at least the input to it. So I just want to put it out there that we may want to at least consider, if there's other reasons that we can't meet until February, to have some work studies. So I agree with Linda, and Linda and I have talked about this, and other work studies, that we find them very valuable for us to actually have an opportunity
Do you want to say anything to that?
This is Annette. We are now in the process of collecting the data. There's a lot of data that we're inputting into a spreadsheet, trying to analyze and do what we've been saying that we should have been doing all along, is to look at our data analysis, to interpret it, and then use it to guide our decisions. So the most recent educational team meeting, executive team meeting, the Assistant Superintendent, Shayna Cooper, shared some of the spreadsheet with the leadership to provide some ideas of data that we are looking at right now and trying to analyze, trying to figure out how we use this information to develop a plan for the future. So we are still in the internal analysis portion of our plan, and it is, we're just starting to share our thoughts with the board we will at the January board meeting and the February work session, and then moving forward from there. So it's already moving quickly. Is it as quickly as we want? No, but we need to take some time here to do some of the analysis internally ourselves first.
Okay, so that's also including the just the kind of financial information sharing to get people up to speed with how financials are actually reported and understand them. So if you're doing data analysis, that would be included in the financial presentation, I guess.
Yes, for example, we are looking at our staff numbers and we're doing comparison analysis. So back in 2018, we had 574 full-time equivalents. We call those FTEs. In 2024, we had 513 FTEs, understanding that in 2023, we have 500, which means that 2018 to 2023, we have been successful at reducing the number of staff. Just normal progression of analysis for every position that we make sure that is essential, and if we need that position or not, and we may not rehire automatically some of those positions. But every position goes through a review to make sure that it is essential, because the mindset has to change for the agency. It's already changed. So 2018 to 2023, 574 FTEs to currently 500 in 2023. 2023, we purposefully added positions, several positions. I think we added maybe 20 positions because our leaders were saying it's too much stress. We're spread too thin. We need more help supporting with special education. We need support with career and technical education. We need literacy instruction. So at that point, we had to decide to add those positions. But as we added, it was 20, and you could see our FTE. Now we have 513.
Right.
So we're still less than the 2018, so that still shows the success. But the question's becoming, can we sustain that? Can we continue with 513? How much funding do we have to be able to bring in to support the 513 FTEs? So that's the kind of analysis that we're doing. other analysis that we're looking at is our payroll, because we pay salaries every 2 weeks. So we have the historical data that we can compare to from 2018, and we compare it back to 2018, and we can look at how much we paid out in payroll in every 2 weeks. And we bring that forward and we look at our increases that we've extended to staff. And I'm surprised, from 2018 to 2024, we have increased our salaries altogether. It equals $10.8 million. So we have to provide our staff, I mean, we've done it, we have been providing salary increases, and at the same time reducing the number of staff and increasing the salaries. So we have to be able to balance, and we have been able to balance that until last year. And we're no longer able to sustain and balance that. So now we have to figure out how we're going to make this sustain. How are we going to continue to provide our staff with salary increases while the number of students we serve is decreasing, meaning our revenue is decreasing, and we are not investing in our facilities? We're not doing the repairs. We're not doing the renovations. We haven't been doing this for a long time. So this is the kind of analysis that we're doing right now that I don't think the agency has ever done. So those are the kind of things internally that we're discussing, that we're looking at, that we're figuring out, that the data is informing us of how we're doing and how we're comparing. And then the results, that end story that I bring to you, the board, so that you can take the lead and figure a plan for the future with good data, with good analysis, with a good understanding of the agency, and what you have that historical comparison, that it's not just finances, but the staff, the academic achievement are all part of those things that we should be paying attention to. That in the past, did we pay attention to it? I don't know, but now we are.
Anything else, Mike?
No, that was a pretty thorough answer. I was really just wondering, I didn't know there was going to be that level of analysis and results being presented at the work study. But if that's the case, in a few months, or certainly don't want to push an agenda too quickly. So if that's forthcoming for February, that's something we're all looking forward to, because that's a lot of information right there. So, and if that's indeed the case, then we'll be able to proceed more quickly than maybe we were expecting, because we're going to have a lot of stuff on the table within just a third of the year. So that's good. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, I'm going to move on. I'm going to move 7.5, the Ombudsman report at this point. If we could have Donna Williams come up.
Good evening. Thank you so much. Board Chair Kneifel, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendent Chekhov, entire board and ASDB family, I made it. Let me tell you, it was a feat. But I am here, and I so appreciate you accommodating my schedule for today. All right, so I don't know if we're going to be running the PowerPoint, but I did have a summary I submitted both slides and a written report. The written report is certainly more detailed, but I'm going to take just a few minutes with you this evening and talk about the slide presentation. So just in summary, in my role, I certainly continue to engage staff and the public in an effort to resolve concerns and also streamline processes. And my activities during this reporting period have ranged from consultations to mediation to focus groups. In fact, the last time I was before you, my report focused solely on the focus group activities and results, and so I won't spend a lot of time on that this evening. I'll focus on the other items tonight. In terms of the continuum of services that continue to be available through the Ombudsman, I continue to perform the full range of Ombud services, being a resource of information all the way to conducting mediations and helping resolve interpersonal conflicts and other conflicts. So as we look at the aggregate data from the reporting period, which is January 2024 to June 2024, so typically we have the form, right, that's been circulating for folks to use. Folks aren't using it, but that's fine. 2 people did. And of those 2 requests, one was from a staff person and the other was from a parent. One of those was an informal complaint and the other was a policy concern. The remaining approximately 18 users contacted the ombudsperson via phone, text, or email. I also responded to 200 email during the same reporting period between the 2 email accounts. So I have a Donna Williams account and I have a ombudsperson account, and both were utilized probably equally as much. In most of those instances, those matters were resolved with either subsequent email replies. In some cases, others required more detailed resolutions that could include some research on my part or directing parties to other services or even setting up consultations. Most of the email contacts were information seekers, people asking questions, who, what, when, where, why, how, and I was able to answer those questions. And certainly once a user's questions are researched and answered, or the user is directed to the appropriate resource for their answer, the matter is considered closed. And addressing user concerns via email appears to be the preferred method of communicating with me. That said, of the 200 or so email and the dozen or so phone calls that I received, mostly related to policy or procedure inquiries or interpersonal conflict, the matters were typically resolved through email, again, phone calls, or subsequent consultations. The reasons have varied, and the pie chart will show you that the breakdown is approximately, the majority of them were process or procedure questions, and that represented the largest segment of inquiries, and that would be followed by interpersonal conflict, and then informal complaints, and then policy questions. I would say that during the same reporting period, I also participated in the planning sessions for the newly developed online complaint filing system, and we're now live with that system. It's a little too early to report on the progress of the new automated system or the impact that the new service might have on Ombud services overall, but I do anticipate being able to share more on this topic during my next report, which will cover July to December. So look for that. Again, just to reiterate my last report regarding the focus groups, I wanted to just reiterate kind of the opportunities that those follow-up focus groups presented in an effort to just kind of solidify kind of the messaging around what people were thinking during those sessions. And so some of the opportunities included instituting some level of accountability measures, for example, to track our communication efforts. As you know, we're working tirelessly to improve that at the agency in the way of formulating a comprehensive communication strategy. And certainly what came out of those discussions was the need to have some level of accountability for how well we're doing in that effort. Also, implementing some anonymous feedback options. Folks still want opportunities to share their concerns with some degree of anonymity, and I think that it's appropriate to accommodate them in some respect to being able to do that. And also creating more opportunities to interact with you, the board, in informal environments. And then finally, connecting with more staff in the outlying areas. You know, we're a large agency. We're not like most school districts. We have facilities and staff all throughout the state. And so what I heard over and over again is sometimes they feel left out. And so more efforts probably should be garnered towards reaching those folks and addressing their needs. And then finally, just to talk about the comprehensive communication plan, and that's ongoing. We continue to make progress in this regard. All of the efforts that I mentioned previously from the focus groups are in an effort to add and bolster the communication strategy. And as we continue to receive feedback from staff, we'll continue to add to the plan's framework. One of the things that came out of the focus groups was the need to equip leadership with more tools in their toolbox around having the very difficult conversations that Assistant Superintendent Chekhov talked about, and that you have talked about, and that we'll talk about in the coming meetings. And so one of the ways to do that is through training, and one of my suggestions was crucial conversations, and it's really an opportunity to give staff some skills around having these really high stakes conversations, because we're going to be having a lot of those in the coming months. And so I think it will help facilitate those conversations and make them more engaging and more productive. And so the first introduction to this training happened last week at the steering committee meeting, and as we meet as a leadership team, that training will be ongoing. And so I'll have more to report on this training and how it's going during my next report. And one of the things I emphasized in my last report, and I will reiterate for this report, is underutilization of the Ombud services by the public. Maybe they don't need me. I don't know. But one of the things that we can do is certainly reach out to parents in various ways, such as using Parent Square. We can utilize social media more of the web page advertising and marketing. And then we also considered video shorts, including ASL, just to get the messaging out. And so I look forward to working with media and other departments in the agency to get some of that work done. In conclusion, I logged in approximately 148 hours during the reporting period. That's consistent. 6 months over 6 months for the last 2 years, I would say. And really, I think the volume and tenor continues to be enough for the amount of hours that I'm able to devote to this work. Again, the most prevalent concern shared by users continues to be interpersonal conflict. No surprises there. But I do think that as we improve upon our communication strategy, as we build skill in the area of having crucial conversations, that need too will also decrease over time. And we'll continue to have focus groups so that we can kind of get a pulse on where staff is on the important issues that impact their daily jobs, and that will also be food for us to use to make improvements in the agency. So with that, my next report from this office will be in 2025. I believe it will be in the January board meeting, and I'll cover the reporting period again from July 2024 to December 2024. That concludes my report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes. This is Linda. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very comprehensive. I appreciated it. And it did give me some thoughts. What I'm considering right now is, as you said, family engagement is not high. I'm wondering about the deaf community as well, and the interpreting communities. How is engagement there? Is that something to consider how can we bring the communities on board because of our pillars, our 4 pillars. We want to be engaged with those community members, and we do seem to see some distance. So how do we make that connection and bring those folks in? Is that something worth contemplating for in your role for your next plans, your next session plans?
Absolutely. I think any time that we can incorporate greater community engagement, especially with the Ombudsperson's office, that's a great thing. And so I am interested in having those conversations and trying different strategies to bring those communities on board in case there's a need for my services, and even if there isn't, just for my own awareness of those communities and their needs. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anyone on the phone? All right, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to jump back up to 1.6, which is an information item. And since Assistant Superintendent of Agency Operation and Support Services is not here, you have the report in front of you. Do you have any questions? There are staff here that could address them. All right, hearing none, I'm going to move on to 2.1, approval of the consent agenda items, which would be 3.2, 5.1, 6.1, 7.2, 7.3, and 7.4.
I moved. Is it working?
Yeah.
Oh, I moved to approve the consent agenda items 3.2, 5.1, 6.1, 7.2, 7.3, and 7.4.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
I'll second.
Okay. We have 2 seconds. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposition? The consent agenda items pass. Moving on to action item 3.1, approval of new district agreements. And that would be Assistant Superintendent Katchoff.
Good afternoon. We do have 3 new contracts. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Any questions regarding the new agreements? I am open to a motion.
I move, this is Lynn, I move to approve the new district agreements.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Thank you, Brittany. All those in favor of accepting the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Okay, I gotta move this up a little bit. Okay, moving on to action item number 3.3, approval of 301 performance. Hold on. Things are popping up at me. Thank you. Action item 3.3, approval of 301 performance-based plan for 2024 to 2025. Assistant Superintendent Katchoff.
Good afternoon, Board President and members of the board. Every year we come forth to you on the 301 checklist for your approval. If you have any questions about it, I have Michael Olivier in the audience who can come up and clarify that for you.
I have a question. This is Lynn. Is this the same as we did last year?
Let me see if I can get.
It looks familiar.
I believe a lot of it is the same, but as this checklist goes through the organizational development division, I do ask that the director can clarify anything for you.
Sure, good thing. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone see me okay? Okay. Thank you. My name is Michael Olivier. I am the director of the Organization Development Division, ODD. And the process this year is more collaborative. We're asking for more feedback from our teachers for the 301 process. When we're talking about the selection, we've narrowed it down. Previously, each department had their own items. For example, ELP, the campuses. We've now created one draft where individuals can select from an option of 3. And they can also select a specific goal they would like to work on based on their interest. So after polling our teachers, many agreed that they would like to keep the form as is or revised based on some feedback.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion.
This is Lynn. I move that we approve the performance-based plan for the 301 monies for school year 24-25.
This is Linda. I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Moving on to 4.1, information item, finance report, Kim Bittridge, Director.
Good afternoon, Board President Kneifel, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendent Chakchuk, members of the board, ASDB community. I will try to keep this slower. Just shout if I'm going too fast. You have been provided our most recent board report that covers the financial data for June 2023 and 2024. This data was covered in more detail at our most recent Finance Committee meeting held on Thursday, September 5th, with Board President Kneifel and Board Member Gordon. Also in attendance were Superintendent Reichman and Assistant Superintendent Cooper. In addition to the June financial reports, we discussed the budget that was submitted to OSPB, the Office of Strategic Planning and Budgeting, on September 3rd. In this budget proposal, we included 2 funding issues. One was for transportation, and one was for related services. Both of these costs have increased since becoming an LEA, and the agency has not been funded as an LEA. The full budget submission is available for your preview on our website. The total student count provided in the board report for August 1st, 2024 shows 1,922 students compared to 2,178 students as of July 1st, 2023. A total decrease of 256 students. Registration was still occurring at the time this report was generated. However, we have been seeing a decrease in the student count in all areas. Campus students have decreased by 35. Regional cooperatives have decreased by 106. Preschool by 113. And birth to 3 by 2 students. When comparing the student count to June 1st of 2024, there was 2,027 students. That's a decrease of 105 compared to the August count. The decrease in student count will impact our funding for budget fiscal year 2025, since the institutional voucher, the fee-for-service, and the classroom site fund are all based on student count. As of June 1st, we had about 504 full-time equivalent, which includes 8.5 full-time equivalent instructions at FBC, Foundation for Blind Children. At that time, we employed 719 staff. There are currently 164 vacancies across the agency that we were recruiting for. The highlights of the June 2024 financial report show a total revenue of $62.2 million, which was $700,000 lower than the June 2023 revenue of $62.9 million. The major difference is the decrease in the general fund and the receipt of the fee-for-service revenue. The general fund is lower since we received $1.1 million in one-time funding for transportation and $866,000 in capital improvement funds during budget fiscal year 2023. The fee-for-service revenue was lower because of the delay in getting the invoices out to the districts. This is all offset by an increase in the federal grants and the classroom site fund. The budget fiscal year 2023 obligated expenses of $64 million were $4.2 million less than budget fiscal year 2024 obligated expenditures of $68.2 million. The increases were in payroll of $2 million, professional and outside services of $2.6 million, offset by a decrease in equipment and transfers out. The overall picture for budget fiscal year 2024 shows that we will be using about $1.6 million of our cash balance to meet our obligations for the year. For budget fiscal year 2023, our revenues exceeded our expenditures by $2.6 million. If there are no questions, this concludes my report for our financial data for June.
Kim. This is Linda. I have 2 questions for you. First of all, you mentioned enrollment numbers. And I have some questions, especially with the decrease in the 0 to 3, and in preschool you mentioned over 100 students decreased. So I have questions about that. But then also, because of these decreases, how will that impact the funding for our next year and for years into the future? What does the picture look like? I don't know if now is the appropriate time to ask those percentages, or what does the potential decrease of our budget look like as we see these enrollment trends continue into the future? And how can we manage this fiscally? I know that we need more work as far as data and analysis, but if you have something offhand to recommend, that'd be great.
So first I want to say that these numbers were before registration was completed, and I have talked to Dr. Kendra Benedict, and the numbers for like FBC, those were higher than what I originally reported by another 20 students. She said she had some extra enrollments. So the October 1st numbers that I'll report on in November should have a more accurate count, since all the students should be entered, and those are the numbers that we report to ADE, Arizona Department of Education. I did mention that our student count does affect our funding as far as the institutional voucher, the fee-for-service, and the classroom site fund. One thing that I do know is the classroom site fund per pupil count the cost has going up. We were getting $758 per student in 2024. That's going to $792. So even though our student count is going down, that's going to increase, but I don't think that's enough to offset the difference in the number of students. So yes, we will definitely be analyzing that.
Right, so, okay, just wanting to know, not enough if you have a quantifiable, how much not enough, but
no.
Thank you.
And this is Suke. I will add, this is some of the things that we will be looking at. They will have the data for us in the February work study meeting. Any other questions for Deb?
This is Lynn. Hopefully this is an easier question. Just looking at the actual expenditures, I was just wondering what personal services.
That's salaries.
Okay. Yeah, that's, I saw that in a number of places. Was curious.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anybody on the phone have any questions or comments?
No, thank you.
This is Suke again. I'm going to make a plug here again to say we could use another board member on the finance committee, and even if you don't feel competent in this area, it's a great way to learn. They go through things very specifically and in detail, and we have time to ask questions. So I'm just putting that out there again. If you want to learn more about this before we move into a work study, joining the finance committee would be a way to do that. That was my PSA for tonight. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to 6.2, information discussion and possible action item, education organizations at ASDB. And we do have the option to go into executive session for any consultation or legal advice with our board's attorney as it relates to this item. Yeah.
This is Linda. I would move that we go into executive session to discuss this issue with the attorney.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Brittany. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, we will move into executive session pursuant to ARS 3843.103A3. The board may vote to go into executive session, which will not be open to the public, for discussion, consultation, for legal advice with the board's attorney as it relates to this item. And we will move to go into executive session at I'm going to say 5:40 to give people a break before and get everything reconnected. Deb, did I do something wrong? Oh, she's okay. Nope, I think we're good. Okay, so let's say 5:40, we will begin executive session. That way we can give folks a break. I will have lots of questions, I'm sure. Oh, so we don't have to worry about it. Okay.
Yeah. So
Yay.
it's ACA on the introduction,
Okay.
which is fine.
Okay, cool.
What else was I gonna tell you?
Yay.
On the motion to go into executive session, Linda was the one that made the motion. Who seconded?
Brittany.
Oh.
Brittany.
It's like I missed that one.
Yeah,
It's 'cause
it was Brittany.
Doing them, I better not do it on there. No.
Yeah, it's
Because it's
Brittany.
gonna pop up on
That's
your.
okay. It doesn't bother me. I just was like,
I didn't know it did that.
Yeah.
So I'm still kind of learning.
It's
And-
kinda
and
cool.
I wanted to let you guys know because I know Lynn said she didn't really like this one. They're phasing out board docs. It's going away.
Yeah.
This is kind of the redoing with some
What I don't-
things that it does have. There's still things in there that I don't really like that
Yeah.
I brought up at the conference, and I said I like this better over here.
well,
so,
it's
yeah.
hard because this is so big that on these screens, I feel like I keep going 125, 130,
I know.
140.
You used to be able to
do
like,
this,
go
yeah.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
But
And
sometimes
I do like being able to have the different tabs open, but
Yeah.
I need to bring my own mouse.
I brought mine because I can't do
I
this
can't.
thing
This
either.
makes me
It makes me
crazy.
crazy.
Me too.
Yeah.
It must be our generation thing.
I do the same
Unless you,
thing
if you
when
want
I
to make your
take
screen
my
bigger, you can
laptop
go
at
up here,
home.
make it bigger.
Well, I can do it here too. They have a little plus and minus here.
Oh, okay.
But every time you move to another page, it goes back to 100%.
See, and what I didn't like about the minutes, when you open to try and do the minutes, that's why I had to attach them the other way.
Yeah.
Because you go in here and it brings all this, and it still shows all the attachments, and I'm like, it's just taking too much room.
Yeah.
But I get why they do it, because that way if somebody's reading the minutes, you can just click on what was
Yeah.
approved.
Yeah, and
You
you
know,
can go-
but, and
yeah.
I get it, but even
Yeah.
though I'm just picky.
All right.
Okay, what do we have here?
Do you want to read my motion?
You have to call up to it.
Testing. Okay. Do we have everybody? Do we have everybody on the phone?
I'm here.
I've got Mike. Is Brittany there?
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Here. Give me 1 second. Can I borrow yours? Thank you. Good old school pen. Just say age policy. Okay. All right, I think we're ready to resume. We'll start back up into the open meeting at 6:25 p.m. And for agenda item 6.2, I'm open to any discussion or action.
I would like to make a motion. This is Lynn. Based on our executive session discussion, I move that we ask the AAG's office to conduct further research on the legalities of the H policy for ASDB.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposition or abstention? So this will continue to be an information and possible action item on the agenda moving forward. Thank you. Okay. 7.1, information and discussion item for, and possible discussion of policies. It should be ACB, ACAA, GBK, GGCB, GCC, INJDB, and JII. Maria Murphy, Director of Policy and Government Relations. I feel like there should be music behind that.
Good evening, Madam President, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendent, members of the board, and the ASDB community. For the record, my name is Maria Murphy. I'm the Director of Policy and Government Relations. You have the red lines of the aforementioned policies before you. I'm not going to repeat all the titles again. No public comment was received in regards to these policies. What I can tell you is that most of the G policies were actually driven by Governor Hobbs's executive order regarding paid parental leave. Okay. And so we were required to create a paid parental leave policy, and because paid parental leave affects the other leave policies, it only made sense to go ahead and make those changes at that time. So do you have any questions for me in the meantime, though?
And I'm assuming that those are first reads.
Yes, ma'am, they are first reads.
Okay, so no action on those tonight. Okay.
No, ma'am.
Any questions for Maria? Anybody on the phone have any questions or comments?
No, thank you.
No one.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, then moving down to agenda item number 8, call for agenda items for the next meeting. 8.1, call to the public. I have not received any calls to the public for non-agenda items. So it would be 8.2, agenda items for the next regular board meeting, for, which is scheduled for November 14th of 2024 in Tucson. I would please continue to put the H policy as a information and possible action. Any other ideas for the next agenda? If not, you can always reach out to Annette or myself prior to the next board meeting. Hearing none, moving on to agenda item 9.1, adjournment.
That's me. This is Lynn. I move that we adjourn this meeting. Somebody second.
Seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, motion passes. The meeting is adjourned at 6:29 p.m. Thank you to the community for being here. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Kay.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Brittany. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
It always pops back up.